For those of us who read beyond the trilogy and into the sequels, Foundation's Edge and Foundation and Earth, this episode made a lot of sense. On the TV show, Gaal Dornick and the Mule are completely reimagined from the books. But in the context of the two sequels that I mentioned, their paths on the TV show now seem clear. The opening scene of this episode has the Mule waking up with night terrors. He's had a nightmare, again, apparently, about Gaal. He says to his friend, "I've seen her face 1,000 times in dreams, and now she's here. I didn't know her name until I pulled it out of Pritcher's mind. I have to destroy her, even if I have to burn everything to do it." So it turns out Gaal and the Mule have been having nightmares about each other. Now this indicates they're not all-powerful beings. Far from it. They're both being manipulated. By whom? Maybe by folks more powerful than either of them. Maybe Callie? It's been established this season that the Mule is a tyrant, and last episode it was established that Gaal is a tyrant. She sacrificed the lives of every person on Calgon to execute her plan to defeat the Mule. So neither of them is a good person. I believe they're meant to destroy each other. Unlike the Cleonic emperors, who are powerful in a conventional way through institutions, Gaal and the Mule are more powerful than any human has the right to be, and they're evil, as shown this season. So a power greater than both of them might be manipulating Gaal and the Mule toward a fatal confrontation. That's my fan theory. In this episode, we pick up with Demerzel stepping out of the airlock on Gaal's ship. Demerzel says, "I followed Brother Dawn. He was in communication with you." The airlock on Clarion Station blew open, and 12 seconds later, his nanites stopped transmitting his vitals. Gaal informs Demerzel, "Dawn was afraid of you. Don't pretend to be in mourning when you have his replacement clone ready to go." Demerzel gets angry and says, "I raised him. He was afraid of me? You should be afraid of me." Gaal shoots Demerzel with a pistol and does some damage to her face, but the wound begins healing rapidly. Demerzel grabs Gaal by the throat and says, "I assumed Dr. Seldon told you I was a robot. I guess not. You will tell me why you used Dawn as your instrument." Cut to the next scene. The Mallows and Magnifico arrive on New Terminus. After some finagling, they get permission to dock, but they're ushered into a jail cell with Han Pritcher. Randu gets into a fight with Pritch for recruiting his nephew to spy on the Mule and putting them all in danger. They're at odds, but Magnifico says, "If I could, I would play and show you what you guys should be doing." But they confiscated his musical instrument, the Visisonar. Pritch is surprised and says, "The instrument is here?" "Magnifico, that's a great name, an artist's name. You help the Mule, don't you?" Magnifico has some great lines here. He says, "I provide the Mule's dark fanfare, giving tumble to his wonder." Pritch wants to know if Magnifico would work against the Mule. Magnifico replies, "I only play to eat, and to live another hollow day. I would gladly play for another purpose." Just then, Mayor Indbur enters the jail cell and calls for Magnifico, who says, "No, not without my lady, her pet, and leader Uncle Randu." So Magnifico's developed feelings for Beta, and it seems he's already planning to get rid of her pet, her husband, Torin. Cut to Brother Day in the Mycogen sector. He goes to a street market and picks up sweets for his consort, Song. Just then, a holographic broadcast to the city tells them some of the Imperial fleet were destroyed, but not all. So it seems the entire fleet didn't go to Calgon to enclose the planet. The vendor says, "They fell into a trap or something. Sounds like a bad business." Brother Day says, "Worse than you know." So this scene tells us Brother Day hasn't completely disavowed the Empire. He does care about the destruction of 300 cruisers and their crew members, all of them killed by the Mule and by Gaal. He finds Song's apartment, and she answers the door. Her last memory of Brother Day is being chosen as his consort, then being transported back to Mycogen. Day has her memories on a drive, which can be reimplanted, but Song says, "No, I don't want those memories. We had a business arrangement. I have a life here." Day doesn't take the hint. He says, "I know about your beliefs, the inheritance, the outlawed cult in Mycogen that worships robots." Day says, "You've met a robot, which would be considered a miracle in your faith. Those are part of your memories." But Song doesn't listen and sends a message to someone. A woman comes through the door and blasts Brother Day with a taser several times. Song tells Day she never could have loved him, and it turns out the woman is Song's life mate. Back to Demerzel and Gaal. It turns out Demerzel had been helping Hari Seldon all along, even during his trial for sedition more than 300 years ago. Hari had convinced Demerzel that the Foundation's rise and Empire's preservation weren't mutually exclusive in the short term. Demerzel is nearly 20,000 years old, and her memories were used to complete the data set for the development of psychohistory. Gaal says, "Don't kill me, because I am the Seldon Plan." Now, she tells Demerzel about the second foundation. She says, "We're not blind like the first foundation. We have access to more than just math. We also have telepathy and extrasensory perception." Uh-oh, sound the alarm. Gaal is full of her own abilities here, although her mentalic powers lack any type of moral restraint and have led her down a path of self-aggrandizement and evil. Demerzel asks, "Is the mule like you?" Gaal says, "He's like us, but he's malignant." So Gaal doesn't recognize she's become evil as well. "And his abilities are far beyond anything we can do," she says. "He can convert people, rewrite their behavior." Demerzel wonders why she couldn't predict the mentalics through the Prime Radiant. Gaal says, "The mule and I are outliers. We break the math." Gaal talks about how she doesn't even need to be asleep during jump space, which is interstellar travel. Demerzel doesn't need to be asleep during the jump either. Now, their uniqueness was established in Season 1. Even on a whisper ship, the passengers need to be asleep during the jump. In Season 1, for example, a First Foundationer, Louis Perrin, sacrificed his life to commandeer the Empire's jump ship to save the Foundation. But he died because regular folks can't be awake during the jump. In Season 1, Demerzel mentioned that the human mind can't comprehend the jump. Gaal says she can project her consciousness forward, like the spacers, and bring it back in time and space to where she is now. The point being, she can see the future, allegedly, and has known about the mule for 152 years. Demerzel says, "Show me." And she induces Gaal into a panicked state close to dying, like going into cryosleep when she has the visions. Demerzel extrudes fibers directly into Gaal's brain and sees herself in Gaal's place, battling the mule. He's screaming at her, "Where is the second foundation?" Demerzel recognizes the setting as the Great Library at Trantor. Demerzel wants to know what happens after that. Gaal says there's a moment of quantum decoherence, then nothing. Demerzel induces the panic state in Gaal again and sees for herself the vacuum of space. A few lights, blue lights. Demerzel touches the light. Then she starts shaking violently and seems to die. Ships appear. We're back in present time. Demerzel wakes up on the floor of Gaal's ship. Gaal is unconscious and Demerzel revives her with CPR. Gaal says, "So we both died and saw nothing." Demerzel says a cardiac arrest is not death, and there was something you missed. An infrasonic signature 65 octaves below the middle C, far below the range of human hearing. Gravitational waves emanating from a black hole. So, 4 months into the future, it seems, Gaal will be orbiting the ergosphere of a black hole. This indicates that the weapon Brother Dusk is developing, the Novacula, which harnesses the power of black holes, will play a role. Back on New Terminus, Magnifico convinces Mayor Indbur and all of the Foundation big shots to listen to his music, which I believe is a huge mistake. Everybody should stop their ears and run for the hills whenever Magnifico plays his music. But they listen, and no surprise, they finally understand deep in their bones how the mule's powers can be amplified by the Visisonar, and without it, he's vulnerable. Next scene. Mayor Indbur goes to Han Pritcher in the jail cell and says, "You knew the mule was dangerous before any of us did. Where did you go on your travels? Tell me." Now Pritcher responds with a vague statement, then says, "I am loyal to the Seldon Plan." We should take notice here that it's bizarre Indbur would even go to Pritcher now and ask these questions just as the vault is about to open. Indbur doesn't allow Pritcher to witness Hari Seldon's appearance. When the vault opens, the First Foundation delegation, along with the Traitor Alliance, steps inside. Torrin looks around and says, "How did Hari Seldon build this? How is the vault even possible?" How indeed did Hari Seldon, a human being, build the vault? Just then, Seldon's hologram appears and says, "Your two factions have been fighting and war is inevitable. But if you join together after the war, there can be a union of worlds. You can navigate this crisis." Torrin speaks up and says, "Wait a minute, what about the Mule? How do we defeat the Mule? The Foundation and the traitors have reached a ceasefire so we can defeat him. We know he's important, right?" The hologram of Seldon looks at him and says, "What is the Mule?" Then the Mule projects a hologram of himself into the vault. He says, "Alas, the architect, tucked away like a tortoise hiding in his shell." The vault opens up a viewer on the ceiling, but not like the Sistine Chapel ceiling, alas, and they see the Foundation's fleet above the vault, already firing on each other. The Mule says, "Just culling the herd before I take the reins. Then we will all march on Trantor together. That was always my plan. Tell me," he says to the hologram of Hari Seldon, "was this part of your plan?" Ebling Miss says, "Dr. Seldon, help us!" But the hologram of Hari disappears. Now they begin to hear a sound, waves of sound on a painful frequency. Ebling says, "It's the null field." That's the force field around the vault. "Seldon is putting up the null field. Run!" Back on Gaal's ship, Demerzel says, "You've given me much to consider, Miss Dornick. You've successfully made the case for what you've characterized as visions, but whether they come to pass can't be proven, and I can't help you until I know your actions won't harm the Cleonic dynasty. For the moment, I'll let you live." Then she receives transmissions. She tells Gaal, "The Mule has attacked New Terminus. He'll take control of the Foundation's Whisper fleet, which means he could be on Trantor's doorstep in a heartbeat." She leaves. Gaal sends a message to Pritcher. "If you can answer me, please just tell me you're safe." So it turns out Pritcher was the responsible one in their relationship. The final scene of the episode shows the first Foundationers staggering out of the vault as the null field begins to come up. Beta loses consciousness in the null field, and Torrin carries her into the forest. Ebling Miss and Magnifico are running together when Magnifico slips and falls. Now, Ebling tries to get on the transport with Mayor Inber, but Inber says, "Sorry, Ebling, there's no more room." Everybody takes cover in the forest. End of episode. I don't think I gave away too many book spoilers. I provided context so that we can puzzle out the direction of this season. Gaal and the Mule are headed for a confrontation that seems like it would destroy the galaxy, but the existence of beings like Callie are a clue that there's a greater power and a greater gambit being waged than the plans of just the Mule and Gaal. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe.